Roads to Carbon Neutral, presented by TotalEnergies. Hello, I'm Emma Crosby. Welcome to the Roads to Carbon Neutral. In this edition, we'll look at significant ways to remove excess carbon from the atmosphere and the groundbreaking technologies leading the way. The steady increase in CO2 in our atmosphere due to human activity is damaging our ecosystem. Therefore, the focus is on how to avoid emissions from the outset, to reduce what's emitted through better practices, and finally compensate what's being released via carbon capture.
The quantity of carbon that is moving around in these cycles is huge. Over time, the human contribution to this system, it builds up and thus is sufficient to destabilize that system.
There are three main methods currently being used to capture carbon emissions. Through carbon capture and storage, the process of capturing CO2 at the source, through carbon capture and utilization, this time to recycle the CO2 for further usage, or by accelerating nature-based solutions through reforestation can be very effective.
Carbon capture, utilization, and storage has seen tremendous growth over the past few years. A lot of this is driven in part, of course, by the need to get to net zero by 2050, but also because of the realization that even if we were to go to 100% renewable electricity tomorrow, we would not be able to completely decarbonize our society.
By the time we get to 2050, we will need CCS to remove the equivalent of between 10 and 20% of the world's carbon emissions. The CCS industry will need to get over 100 times bigger over the next 3 decades.
Today, there are fewer than 25 CCUS facilities in operation around the world. Not enough to capture the upcoming amounts needed.
It requires political leadership to stand up and say, this is crucial to meet net zero. It's a cost-effective solution and we're going to do it.
Advancements in technology, global policy and private investment could create a $1 trillion opportunity while also helping to save our planet. Ecosystems right here on our planet already have the ability to store carbon naturally. Reporter Emmeline Nsingi-Nkosi has been looking at the role of preserving and restoring carbon sinks.
The ocean, atmosphere, soil and forest are the world's largest carbon sinks. The world's forests provide a carbon sink that absorbs a net 7.6 billion metric tons of CO2 per year. The Earth's soil soaks up roughly a quarter of all human emissions per year. Scientific study into how to preserve natural carbon sinks in the fight against greenhouse gas emissions is gathering pace. TotalEnergies is investing in natural carbon sinks to ensure that biodiversity is taken into account across all its activities.
This new line of operation is about carbon sequestration and carbon footprint final offsetting or neutralization. We've been partnering in Australia with a developer that will gather farmers so as to transition from rather intensive pasture management to more regenerative pasture management, and that's optimizing value for farming practices. Another example would be an operation for conservation of very vast surfaces of Amazonian forests, but also strengthening local value chains. We are starting. It's a pioneering adventure.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined now by Bruno Cellon, TotalEnergies Vice President of CCUS, to discuss the work of his division. Hi there, Bruno. So Bruno, how long has TotalEnergies been investing in carbon sinks and carbon capture, utilization and storage technologies?
It started a long time ago. We have more than 25 years experience in CCS. It started in Norway, in the North Sea, with decarbonization of the natural gas that we were producing. Then, once captured, we were transporting that CO2 and storing it under the sea in a rock. We grew from that experience and expertise.
And can you tell us about the TotalEnergies CCUS projects underway?
Well, Northern Lights project is the first CO2 shipping and storage project to be initiated in the world. So the first phase of that project will be able to accommodate up to 1.5 million tons per annum of CO2. They're capturing the CO2, they're putting the CO2 at disposal in a shipping terminal, and then ship that CO2 all along the coast of Norway. The CO2 will be transferred first into an intermediary storage, and then will go from there to the offshore, under the sea, in the rock.
As we work towards bringing breakthrough technology to mass scale, most countries and businesses are taking action now to curb CO2 release into our atmosphere by putting a price on carbon emissions. In a country-by-country breakdown, China, the United States and India combined are responsible for more than half of all carbon emissions. It wasn't until 2021 that China launched an official national emissions trading scheme. Finland was ahead of the curve, the first to introduce the carbon tax in 1990. Corporations are taking responsibility too. A survey of close to 6,000 large businesses revealed that more than 1/3 are using an internal carbon price or are planning to implement one by 2023.
TotalEnergies is fully integrating the climate challenge into its strategy. The group's investment arm, TotalEnergies Ventures, is focused entirely on assisting small businesses.
So TotalEnergies Ventures has 3 key criteria when we look at new investments. 1 is financial return, 2 is strategic relevance, and the 3rd is carbon neutrality. So specifically, in the carbon neutrality side, we are looking at technologies in carbon recycling. Deep Branch transforms carbon dioxide with the hydrogen gas feedstock through a microbial fermentation process to make a sustainable protein.
Bacteria is grown in a bioreactor, which is essentially some salty water which we bubble gases through hydrogen and carbon dioxide. Then the challenge is to separate the bacteria out from that liquid. We have some liquid and then some bacterial pellet there. Then we need to turn that pellet into a powder form by drying it out. Then we send the powder to the feed manufacturers who combine it with lots of other ingredients to make some pellets, which are eventually fed to the animal.
So far, the protein produced by Deep Branch is used as animal feedstocks for the fish and poultry industries.
It's rare to be able to combine something that you love doing with something that is great for the world.
As we've seen, carbon capture has a significant role to play when it comes to achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050. If you'd like to find out more, please visit roadstocarbonneutral.com. The Roads to Carbon Neutral, presented by TotalEnergies.